In this video I will share my personal top 10 of YouTube diabetes channels. The channels that I'm going to mention are not just interesting for type 1 or type 2 diabetics, but for non-diabetics as well. Hi, my name is Peter and I'm a type 1 diabetic with over 16 years of practical experience. Using the low-carb diet, I drastically increased my time in range and my A1C is now a healthy 5.1. Well, you might ask, Peter, after 16 years, is there still something to learn? Well, there certainly is. In my opinion, diabetes is a continuous learning experience. No matter where you are on your journey, you'll find some difficulties on the road. So I still find, after all this time, YouTube to be a valuable source of information. I do read books about diabetes as well, or search the internet for other information, and occasionally I might even read a scientific article. But I think that YouTube especially is a very good source to learn more about the experience of other diabetics out there. Finally, it's not just about factual information. I find I also get a lot of motivation out of watching videos from other diabetics, especially in difficult times. Because I'm on the carnivore diet, I do have a slight preference for the channels of influencers that follow a low carb or keto or carnivore approach. But I do also watch influencers that are on a more mixed diet, as long as they have a convincing story and some interesting experience to share. I do, however, rarely visit channels from high-carb influencers because I do think that the high-carb diet is not a viable approach to dealing with your diabetes. Nevertheless, occasionally I will also watch their videos. Out of curiosity or for entertainment purposes. It's still interesting to know about other opinions out there. And sometimes you might be surprised to find information on those channels that are also applicable to a low-carb context. Just be careful to pick out the right information. We'll go through the list in random order, but I will first talk about the larger channels. I visit those the most for the simple fact that they tend to upload videos more frequently, and because they are backed by larger communities. Personally, I like it very much to go through the comment sections and to share ideas and experiences with other diabetics out there, and that's simply most easily done on those larger channels. And that is, of course, not to say that it's impossible to do so on smaller channels, but on the larger channels you will find me the most. The first channel that I'm going to talk about is Beat Diabetes. That's the channel of Dennis Pollock. His approach to diabetes is a very practical one, very down to earth. I like that very much. Although his background is that of type 2 diabetes, his videos are equally interesting for type 1 diabetics. And he focuses on what's really important in dealing with diabetes, and that is to drastically reduce the intake of carbohydrates. He doesn't get distracted by questions like whether you should go on a plant-based or animal-based approach. It's very simple. The best friend on your diabetes journey is Mike the glucose meter. He will tell you what foods are best to eat. Dennis's talks are very inspirational and his explanations are usually spot on. And whether you are very experienced or still new to diabetes, his channel is equally interesting. I still visit his channel very often just to get some inspiration or simply for some positive reinforcement. Then the next channel is Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes University. Dr. Bernstein is the author of the best-selling book The Diabetes Solution. He is a type 1 diabetic himself and advocates a low-carb approach and shows that way it's possible to obtain blood glucose levels that are basically indistinguishable from those in healthy individuals, and that's quite special for a type 1 diabetic. In his book he talks about the law of small numbers, which basically tells us that it's much easier to control your blood glucose, to make smaller errors, if you eat small amounts of carbohydrates and inject small amounts of low and slow-acting insulin. His channel provides a nice addition to his book. The videos might be a little bit technical at times, but all the more so they are useful for when you are just starting on this low-carb diet. Then the next channel is Type 1 Talks. I used to visit this channel already before going low carb. This channel is run by a Swiss guy called Tom, who has more than 30 years of experience with type 1 diabetes, and his channel contains a wealth of information on virtually any topic related to type 1 diabetes. The latest news, a lot of tips and tricks, whether it comes to diet, lifestyle or exercise. You can all find it there. And he has been successful on several diets. So he has been low carb, medium carb, and now he's on a more plant-oriented diet. But overall, he is very knowledgeable and very open-minded. So I strongly recommend subscribing to his channel as well. And be sure to catch one of his Q&As. Then the next channel is Diabetes Nerd. That is the channel of Ginger Vieira. Her channel provides a lot of practical information on how to deal with type 1 diabetes as well. And she wrote several books on that. And particularly, I very much like her YouTube shorts in which she gives practical tips and insights related to diet, lifestyle and exercise. And what's also particular about this channel is that you can find a lot of information about more unusual medications and treatments in type 1 diabetes, such as inhalable insulin, but also medications that you typically find in a type 2 diabetic context, such as metformin and Ozempic. Those might be helpful in further optimizing your glucose regulation. Anyway, it's certainly worth subscribing to this channel as well. Then the next channel is not really a diabetes channel, it's the YouTube portal of a frequently returning conference series. And here you'll find a lot of presentations from renowned doctors and researchers in the low-carb keto space on all kinds of topics related to the low-carb diet. This was actually for me the starting point of going on my low-carb journey. Here I found the presentation of David Dykman, a young guy who is a type 1 diabetic, and in his presentation he talked about his success story following the low-carb diet advocated by Dr. Bernstein. So this is where I got in touch with Dr. Bernstein's ideas for the very first time. Be sure to also check out the US spin-offs of this conference series. Then the next one is Low Carb and Fasting. That's the channel of Najiri. She is an independent nutrition researcher and coach and a type 1 diabetic as well. As the name of her channel suggests, she focuses on using a low-carb lifestyle and fasting to improve blood glucose regulation. She has interviewed a lot of well-respected doctors in the low-carb keto space, and you'll find full interviews as well as fragments on her channel. And additionally, she runs a Facebook group, and more information can be found in the description of her channel. Then the next one I also visit at a regular basis is Diabetech. The name of the channel already suggests what it's all about. Here you can find information and reviews of the latest technology and the latest gadgets related to diabetes. And this channel is certainly worth a visit. Then we get to the honorable mentions, because now I will talk about a few smaller channels that have not been active for a while, but I do find them of such quality that they are really worth a visit. The first one is Tame Type 1. This is a small but very inspirational channel from a type 1 diabetic that, like me, went on a carnivore diet. And he gives a lot of practical advice and insights, also related just to daily life as a diabetic. And although this channel has been inactive for a while, it contains quite a number of videos, so really worth a visit. Then we get to the last channel, which I personally find very inspirational, the channel Steamed White Rice. Well, at first you'd think that this channel is not at all about diabetes, but it is. It's run by a type 1 diabetic that recently started following a carnivore diet. And the channel has been inactive for a while, but it contains about 5 to 10 very inspirational talks off camera about type 1 diabetes and going on a carnivore diet. Certainly strongly recommended. Then finally, the 10th spot is still open, and this demonstrates the unfortunate reality that the number of low-carb diabetes channels on YouTube is still very limited. There are a lot of influencers out there that tell us that it's just all right to stay on a standard Western diet, or even to go on a high-carb diet as long as you just inject insulin. Well, that's not the right approach, in my opinion. You might even risk to get a double diabetes if you would do so. Anyway, I'd like to fill the 10th spot as well. So if you have any suggestions for that, please let me know in the comments. For sure there are some channels that I don't know about yet.